What if I told you that Europe's future religion was decided in a single afternoon, on a bridge most Romans barely gave a second thought to? Sounds like an exaggeration, right? It does. And yet, it isn't. Stick with me, and by the end of this episode, it'll make perfect sense. It's the year 312 CE, just north of Rome, at a place called the Milvian Bridge. Why here? Why not inside the city? Because this narrow crossing over the Tiber is the last open road into Rome. Control the bridge, and you control the city. Control the city, and you control the empire. Simple geography, enormous consequences. So who's facing off on either side? On one bank stands Maxentius, emperor in Rome, backed by the Senate, the city, the walls, and the gods Rome has trusted for centuries. On the other bank, Constantine, marching south from the north. Fewer soldiers, less political support, and absolutely everything to lose. Does that sound like a fair fight? Not even close. So why would Rome do this to itself? Why another civil war? Because Rome always does this to itself. Civil war isn't a breakdown of the Roman system. It's practically built into it. But this one feels different, and not just because of who's fighting. It feels different because this battle isn't only about power. It's about belief.
I am Constantine, commander of the Western Legions and claimant to the throne of Rome. I march south knowing I am not alone. And no, not because my army is large. It isn't. I march because the God who sees all things has not turned his eyes from me. They say Maxentius has Rome, the walls, the temples, the favor of the ancient gods. Perhaps he does. But power given by men can be taken by men. Power granted by heaven cannot. I have seen the sign, and I trust it.
So why does this battle matter more than any other Roman power struggle? Because it won't just decide who rules Rome. It will decide what Rome believes. Can belief really change the course of history? Yes, especially when an emperor claims that belief comes from God himself. By nightfall, one ruler will lie dead in the Tiber, dragged under by his own retreating army. The other will stand victorious, convinced this moment was meant for him. And that leaves us with a question that echoes far beyond this bridge. Did heaven truly intervene on that October day in 312? Or did Constantine understand something few rulers ever had, that faith, once embraced by power, doesn't just inspire people, it reshapes the world. Either way, Europe is about to turn down a road it will never walk back from. Welcome to the podcast. Battles that shaped Europe.
We shall never surrender!
Battle of Milvian Bridge, 312 CE. Part 1. The World Before the Battle. Before we go back to that bridge outside Rome, let's slow down for a moment. Last time, Jerusalem had fallen. Rome's legions still dominated the Mediterranean, and the empire looked untouchable. So did the world stay that way? Of course not. It never does. For a while, though, Rome actually finds balance. This is the age of emperors like Trajan, Hadrian, and Marcus Aurelius. Not conquerors obsessed with endless expansion, but rulers who understood limits. What made them different? They knew when to stop. Rome reaches its natural borders. Britannia is secured, not endlessly pushed. Roads cut through the island, forts rise, cities grow, and Hadrian builds a wall. Was it fear? No, it was control. This far and no further. Was this Rome at its strongest? In many ways, yes.
Order is not weakness. It is the mark of a ruler who understands limits. And I am beginning to believe those limits are not set by quarreling gods, but by a single will, greater than all of them.
But here's the problem with balance. It rarely outlives the people who create it. When Marcus Aurelius dies, stability fades with him. Why? Because wisdom cannot be inherited, and Rome never learned how to choose its best men peacefully. Civil wars return. Emperors rise on the shoulders of soldiers. Plagues thin the population. Coins lose value. And while Rome looks inward, the frontiers begin to move. Beyond the Rhine and the Danube lies Germania. Dense forests where sunlight barely reaches the ground. Rivers that flood without warning. No great cities to occupy. No single king to defeat. So what's happening out there? Change. For generations, Germanic warriors watched Rome from a distance. Now, they're learning from it. They serve in Roman armies. They return home with pay, weapons, and discipline. They trade with Roman towns. They marry across borders. Roman armor, Roman tactics, even Roman titles. The Franks gather along the lower Rhine. The Goths press closer to Roman lands. The Vandals and Saxons probe the edges. Are they united? No. Are they primitive? Not anymore. They are becoming peoples, not just tribes.
The old gods demand strength and return chaos. What I see beyond the frontier is different. Men shaped by law, by order, by purpose. And if there is one God who governs all creation, then no border lies outside his sight.
To the east, Rome faces another change. Parthia, the old rival, is gone. In its place rises the Sasanian Empire, centralized, confident, and far less patient with Roman interference. Does this mean Rome is suddenly weak? No. But it does mean Rome is no longer alone at the top. For the first time in centuries, Europe and the Near East are shaped by powers watching one another carefully, waiting. Inside the empire, the pressure builds. Rome experiments with shared rule, multiple emperors, separate courts, a system meant to prevent chaos. Does it work? For a while. Does it answer the real question? Never. Because Rome still cannot decide one thing: who rules by right and who rules by force.
The old gods reward whoever shouts loudest and strikes hardest. But I have begun to wonder, what if authority comes not from ritual, but from justice? What if power is granted, not seized?
And then there's the quietest change of all, cultural change. Temples still smoke with sacrifice, statues still line the streets. But Christianity spreads, quietly, steadily, persistently, through households, through merchants, through soldiers. Is it accepted? No. Is it growing? Yes. Because it offers something Rome never truly did: meaning beyond victory.
A God who does not demand blood in exchange for favor. That is not weakness. That is strength of a different kind.
So why does conflict finally erupt? Not because of religion, not yet. Not because of ideology, but because legitimacy remains unresolved. Maxentius holds Rome itself. Constantine holds the loyalty of men, and a growing conviction that his path is guided by something greater. Which matters more? Rome is about to decide. Because when belief begins to shift, borders move, and old systems fail, history doesn't drift. It chooses. And that choice now waits just north of the Eternal City, at a narrow bridge over the Tiber. The armies gather, and the signs that will follow begin to take shape. Part 2. The Armies Gather. As autumn settles over Italy, the roads begin to fill. Not with merchants, not with pilgrims, with soldiers. You can almost hear them before you see them. Boots on stone, armor creaking, banners snapping in the wind. From the north, Constantine marches south with roughly 40,000 men. Is that a massive army by Roman standards? No. Is it dangerous anyway? Very much so. These are veterans of the Rhine and the Danube, men shaped by long winters, hostile borders, and years of discipline earned the hard way. They don't shine. They don't parade. They survive. And they win. They've crossed mountains, passed through loyal cities, and now they stand within a single day's march of Rome itself.
A soldier who has endured the frontier does not measure strength in numbers alone. He measures it in trust, in order, and in the belief that his cause is just.
Inside Rome, the picture looks very different. Maxentius commands 70 to 80,000 troops, urban cohorts, Italian levies, fresh men drawn from the heart of the empire. And at the center of it all, the most feared unit Rome has ever created, the Praetorian Guard. Once the elite protectors of emperors, hand-picked, highly paid, permanently stationed in the capital. For generations, they've decided who rules Rome, not by law, but by force. They have guarded emperors, they have murdered emperors, they have sold the throne to the highest bidder. So where does their loyalty lie? Not with Rome, with power. And Maxentius is certain that power belongs to him.
Men who place their faith in gold and privilege will abandon it the moment fear arrives. Loyalty built on belief endures far longer than loyalty bought.
Maxentius doesn't rely on soldiers alone. Before leaving the city, he orders the Sibylline books consulted. Rome's most ancient prophecies, opened only in moments of true crisis. And what do they say? Something simple, something vague, and something dangerous. On this day, the enemy of Rome will perish. Does it name the enemy? No. Does it need to? Not for Maxentius. He hears certainty in those words. He believes Rome itself is the subject of the prophecy, and that anyone who threatens it is already condemned. So instead of waiting safely behind Rome's walls, he marches out to meet Constantine. He crosses the Tiber and orders the permanent bridge behind him destroyed. In its place, a temporary bridge of boats is assembled, meant only for retreat, if retreat is ever needed. Is that confidence? Absolutely. Is it risky? Extremely. Because confidence, when misplaced, has a habit of turning fatal.
The words of man often comfort pride. The voice of God unsettles it. If there is truth in prophecy, it does not exist to protect those who presume they deserve it.
The battlefield itself offers no mercy. The Milvian Bridge is narrow, barely wide enough for formations to hold. The Tiber beneath it runs dark and fast, swollen by autumn rain. The ground along the banks is slick, muddy, uneven. Behind Constantine's army, low hills rise gently, solid ground. Behind Maxentius, there is water and a temporary crossing. Once the fighting begins, movement will be limited, order will matter, and panic will spread faster than commands ever could. This is not a place where mistakes are forgiven.
Tonight, I do not seek signs, but I sense that one is near. If the God I am learning to trust wishes to be known, he will not speak in riddles or shadows. He will make his will impossible to ignore.
As night falls, silence settles over both camps. Maxentius rests on prophecy, numbers, and tradition. Constantine rests on discipline, and a growing conviction that the coming dawn will reveal more than just the outcome of a battle. Because some mornings do not simply decide who wins, they decide what the world will believe next. Part 3. Into the Fray. All right, this is it. Dawn creeps in over the Tiber. Not like a dramatic sunrise, more like the world slowly opening one tired eye. Mist hangs over the water, the kind that sticks to your clothes and refuses to leave. The ground's slick with night dew. Boots slide a little. Men stand packed together, shoulder to shoulder. You can see their breath. You can hear it. You know that feeling right before something big happens? When nobody's talking much, but everyone's thinking the same thing? Yeah, that one. Nothing's happened yet, but everyone knows it's about to. Constantine rides along the line. Does he stare down the enemy? No. Does he shout? No. He looks up. And then, something happens that people will argue about for the next 1700 years.
Look! Above the sun! Do you see it? Not a dream, not smoke, a light. Brighter than bronze, sharper than flame. A cross, drawn across the sky itself, and beneath it, words, not spoken by men, shown. In this sign, conquer. This is no omen of chance. This is a command.
Now imagine you're a soldier in that line. You've marched for months. You're tired. You're cold. You're about to fight Rome itself. And your commander looks absolutely certain. Would that matter? Of course it would. There's no hesitation, no committee, no debate. Constantine turns his horse and rides straight back toward his men.
Mark your shields, not with the signs of old gods who bargain and abandon, but with this sign. By this sign you will stand. By this sign you will advance.
And suddenly the camp is alive. Paint is mixed with whatever's around. Ash, oil, pigment. Nobody's picky. Symbols start appearing on shields. The Cairo. Strange. New. Unfamiliar. Do all the soldiers understand what it means? No. Do they understand confidence when they see it? Absolutely. It's like when someone takes charge in a crisis. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but at least someone knows what to do. And certainty spreads fast. The armies start moving. Maxentius keeps it simple. Very Roman. Use numbers, push hard, break the smaller force. The Praetorian Guard leads the advance. Polished, aggressive, convinced this will be quick. They expect Constantine's line to bend. It doesn't. Constantine plays it differently. No rush, no panic. Hold formation, lock shields, anchor the flanks. Let the river work for you. Let the bridge work for you. His veterans absorb the impact, step by step, giving ground slowly, on purpose. Think of it like a crowded hallway. The more people push in, the less anyone can move. And Maxentius's men are walking straight into that hallway.
Hold! Do not break! Let them come, the Lord has narrowed their path. Step together, forward, now!
And suddenly, it's too much. The bridge chokes. Too many men, too little space. Orders vanish in the noise. Units keep pushing without knowing why. The Praetorians shove forward, but behind them, their own army compresses. Ever been stuck in a crowd where you can't step forward or back? Now add armor, weapons, fear. There's nowhere to go. This is the moment everything snaps. One unit stumbles near the riverbank. Another crashes into it. Men start falling, not to swords, but to panic. Behind them, the temporary bridge sways, cracks, and then it breaks.
Now! Press them! God has delivered them into our hands. Do not give them room. Shields forward. Drive them to the water.
What follows isn't a clean victory. It's a collapse. Men turn to run and find nothing behind them. Armor drags bodies straight down into the dark river. Shouts turn into screams, screams into silence. Even elite troops can't fight water, weight, and fear at the same time. Maxentius tries to escape. Where does he go? Toward the river. Toward the bridge that should be there. It isn't. Pushed by his own men, weighed down by armor, he falls into the Tiber and disappears. The prophecy comes true. Just not for the man who trusted it.
Hold the line. Do not pursue blindly. This victory is given. Do not turn it into chaos. Stand firm by the sign you bear.
By midday, it's over. Bodies line the banks. Shields drift downstream like broken furniture after a flood. The Praetorian Guard, the unit that once decided who ruled Rome, is finished. And Constantine stands victorious. Not just because he outthought his enemy, but because he believes, deeply, that this morning was guided by something far greater than strategy. Next, we'll talk about what that victory costs. For Rome, for power, and for the gods of an empire that just lost their place at the center of the world. Part 4. The Price of Victory. So, what happens after the noise finally dies down? You'd expect cheering, right? Victory shouts, celebrations, maybe chaos. But Rome doesn't work like that. Rome has been through too many civil wars to celebrate too fast. By midday, though, the facts are impossible to ignore. Maxentius is dead, drowned in the Tiber. His army is broken. And the Praetorian Guard, the most feared unit in the empire, finished. How many men died that day? Honestly, no one knows. Ancient writers argue, exaggerate, contradict each other, but thousands don't walk away from those riverbanks. And by sunset, one thing is absolutely clear. There is only one emperor left in the West.
Victory is not proven by how many fall, but by what remains standing. If God granted this triumph, then it must serve something greater than my own power.
And here's where the first big consequence hits. Politics. Because with Maxentius gone, something else dies with him. The Tetrarchy. That whole system of 4 emperors, carefully balanced, endlessly unstable, it collapses. No more shared rule. No more pretending power can be divided cleanly. Constantine becomes the sole ruler of the Western Empire. And soon enough, he will reunite the entire Roman world under one authority. Does that make Rome stronger? In the short term, yes. Does it concentrate enormous power in one man's hands? Absolutely. And Europe will feel that for centuries. So what does Rome do when its emperor dies just outside the city walls? Does it resist? Does it panic? No. It adapts. Instantly. The gates open. The Senate swears loyalty. Statues of Maxentius are pulled down, his name erased, as if he never existed. Cold? Yes. But that's Rome. Rome doesn't mourn failed rulers. It deletes them. Constantine enters the city quietly. No looting, no revenge, no blood in the streets. Does that matter? More than you might think. Rome knows how fragile order is. One violent victory can destroy everything. Restraint here isn't mercy, it's control.
Rome has seen too many victors who ruled through terror. I will not add another memory like that. Power gained through blood must be restrained by conscience.
One decision, though, leaves no room for compromise. The Praetorian Guard is dissolved. Why is that such a big deal? Because for centuries, these men didn't just protect emperors. They decided who ruled. They crowned emperors. They murdered emperors. They sold the throne to the highest bidder. By breaking their power, Constantine permanently changes Roman politics. From now on, no emperor will rule with his own guards holding a knife at his back. That single move reshapes how power works in Europe.
Men who believe they stand above the law will always corrupt it. If authority is to endure, it must answer to justice and to God, not to fear.
But the deepest change doesn't happen in the Senate. It happens in belief. So let's ask the obvious question. Did this battle instantly turn Europe Christian? No, not even close. But it did something just as important. It gave Christianity legitimacy. Constantine believes his victory came from the Christian God, and he acts on that belief. In the year 313, he issues the Edict of Milan. What does it do? It legalizes Christianity, places it on equal footing with other religions, and, for the first time, officially ends its persecution. No more hiding, no more illegal gatherings, no more fear of execution simply for belief. That single decision changes everything.
Faith does not grow through chains or threats. It grows when men are free to choose it. The God I have come to trust does not demand worship at the sword's edge.
Once Christianity is protected, it spreads differently. Churches become the hearts of cities, not just places of prayer, but courts, shelters, centers of charity and community. Think of them as town halls, hospitals, and schools rolled into one. Monasteries spread across Europe. They teach people to read. They copy books. They preserve knowledge when states collapse. Without them, huge parts of the ancient world simply disappear.
If men are taught that every soul has value, then knowledge itself becomes sacred. To preserve wisdom is to honor the Creator who gave reason to mankind.
Kings change too. Rulers stop claiming power only through bloodlines or brute force. Now they rule by the grace of God. Does that limit power? Sometimes. Does it justify power? Also sometimes. Because if a king claims divine authority, who dares challenge him?
No ruler stands above God's judgment, not even one who claims to serve him. When men forget that, they betray the faith they claim to defend.
And this is where the story grows darker. Because Christianity doesn't only bring charity and learning, it brings certainty. And certainty, in human hands, can be dangerous. Over the centuries, Europe will see wars fought in God's name, crusades launched, heretics persecuted, cities burned. The same faith that builds hospitals is also used to justify slaughter. How can both be true? Because faith doesn't erase ambition. It gives ambition a language.
Do not judge the light by the shadows men cast with it. The faith teaches mercy, humility, and restraint. When men wage war in God's name, it is often God's teaching they ignore first.
So when we ask how this battle shaped Europe as we know it today, the answer is complicated, but honest. It gave Europe a shared moral language. Rituals and holidays still practiced today, churches and monasteries at the heart of towns and cities, and the idea that power must answer to something higher than itself. But it also gave Europe religious wars, intolerance, violence justified by absolute belief. Both paths begin here.
If faith has the power to heal nations, it also demands wisdom from those who wield it. I believe the truth of the faith is eternal, but man must still learn how to live it.
And that's why the Battle of the Milvian Bridge matters. Not because it created a perfect Christian Europe, but because it bound faith and power together, forever. It didn't decide what Europeans would believe. It decided that belief would matter. Rome survives the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, but it steps onto a road with no return. Next, we'll explore the echoes left behind, the sources, the doubts, and the questions historians still argue over today. Part 5. Echoes from the Past. So, how do we actually know what happened at the Milvian Bridge? I mean, really know. Was there truly a sign in the sky? Did Constantine see exactly what later stories describe? The honest answer? It depends who you ask. And honestly, that's where things get fun. Our main sources don't come from one place. They come from very different angles. There's Maxentius, a Christian writer close to Constantine's court. He talks about a dream, a command given quietly, personally, the night before the battle. Then there's Eusebius, writing years later. He gives us the big moment, a vision in the sky, in daylight, seen by others, complete with divine words. So, which one is true? Both? Neither? Somewhere in between? Probably. Because here's the thing. Memory doesn't work like a camera. It works like a story.
God does not reveal himself to satisfy chroniclers. He reveals himself to guide those who must decide. Whether by dream or by vision, the meaning was clear, and the moment was real.
And that brings up another question. If this moment mattered so much, why doesn't it dominate every source right away? Simple answer: history is terrible at recognizing turning points while they're happening. It's only later, after consequences pile up, that stories sharpen. Details become clearer once they've proven they mattered. The sign grows brighter in memory, because the victory did. What's really fascinating is how this battle refuses to stay on paper. Because it doesn't just survive in texts, it survives in stone. Walk through Rome today, and you'll pass beneath the Arch of Constantine, standing right next to the Colosseum. Still there, still massive. Why was it built? Because of this battle. The arch celebrates Constantine's victory over Maxentius, and it does so in a very Roman way. It borrows statues and reliefs from earlier emperors: Trajan, Hadrian, Marcus Aurelius. Why reuse the past? Because Constantine is doing something clever. He's saying, I belong in their line. But at the same time, he's quietly changing what victory means. No sacrifices to pagan gods carved into the stone. No obvious Christian symbols either. Just authority, legitimacy, destiny. A bridge between worlds, literally carved in marble.
I did not wish to erase Rome's past. I wished to show that it had reached fulfillment. What was best in Rome did not need to be destroyed, only redirected.
And then there's the bridge itself. The Milvian Bridge still exists. You can walk across it today. No chariots, no legions, just pedestrians, bicycles, and the sound of the Tiber below. Feels strange, doesn't it? A place where thousands once fought and drowned, now crossed on the way to work or lunch. Does it feel dramatic today? Not at all. And that's kind of the point. History doesn't preserve itself as spectacle. It hides under the ordinary, waiting for someone to notice. This story has even made its way onto the screen. Quietly, imperfectly, but meaningfully. The BBC series Ancient Rome, The Rise and Fall of an Empire treats the Milvian Bridge as more than just a fight. It's about belief and consequence. And in Italy, the film Costantino il Grande leans into destiny, faith, and imperial drama in a much more traditional way. Do these versions get everything right? Of course not. But that's not really the point. Every generation retells this moment using the questions it cares about.
Men will always retell what they cannot forget. Each age sees the past through its own questions. What matters is not perfection of memory, but the truth it seeks to preserve.
And the echoes don't stop at Rome. Because Constantine doesn't just win a battle, he redraws the map. In the year 330, he founds a new capital, Constantinople. Why leave Rome? Because Rome is heavy. Heavy with gods, traditions, rivalries, old expectations. Constantinople is lighter, purpose-built, forward-looking, a city for what comes next. From an archaeological point of view, this is huge. Rome grew messily, layer upon layer, century after century. Constantinople? It's planned. Christian basilicas beside imperial palaces, walls, forums, harbors, all designed with intention. Stone and belief rising together. This isn't just an empire that allows Christianity. It's an empire that shows it.
Rome carried the weight of what had been. I needed a city that could carry what was becoming, a place where rule and belief could grow together, not tear each other apart.
And that decision lasts longer than Constantine ever could. When Rome in the West collapses centuries later, Constantinople survives. Roman law survives there. Greek philosophy survives there. Christian tradition survives there. Much of what Europe later rebuilds passes through that city. So when we talk about the echoes of the Milvian Bridge, we're not just talking about belief. We're talking about monuments you can still touch, bridges you can still cross, cities that shaped continents. All of it tracing back to one battle and one interpretation of what it meant. And that leaves us with the question historians still argue about. Was Constantine guided by faith? Or was faith shaped by Constantine? The uncomfortable answer? Probably both.
Men search for purity in history. God works through reality. If belief shaped power, then power was also called to serve belief. That tension was the price of victory.
So when we look back at the Milvian Bridge, what do we really see? A battle? Yes. A miracle? Maybe. A foundation? Absolutely. Because from this moment on, belief stops being just personal. It becomes political, architectural, cultural. It becomes European. And now, let's push things even further. What if the sign never appeared? What if Maxentius had won? In the next part, we'll step into that alternate road and see just how fragile history really is. Part 6. What if? All right, let's push this a bit further. What if Constantine simply isn't there anymore? No victory, no vision, no moment where faith steps into the spotlight. The empire keeps spinning, sure. Rome always does that, but it spins in a slightly different direction. The tetrarchy reshuffles again. Emperors rise, fall, betray one another. Surprising? Not at all. That's just Rome being Rome. But here's the key thing that doesn't happen. Christianity never steps into power. And that one absence changes everything. So let's ask the obvious question. Does Christianity disappear? No, not even close. It survives, but barely. It stays small, mostly urban, mostly among the poor. Talked about quietly, practiced carefully, sometimes nervously. No imperial favor, no land grants, no legal standing. Just one mystery cult among many. Tolerated, ignored, never trusted. Enough to exist, not enough to shape a continent.
A truth can live in whispers, but without shelter, it cannot shape the world. Faith that is always hiding is faith that is always wounded.
And while Christianity stays in the shadows, something else moves to center stage. Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun. You can almost see why it works, right? Already popular with soldiers, already favored by emperors, one supreme power, but flexible enough to keep the old gods around. Clean, Roman, comfortable. Rome doesn't abandon religion in this world. It reorganizes it around strength, victory, light. Sounds impressive, but also a little empty.
The sun promises strength, but it asks nothing of the heart. It shines on the just and the cruel alike, and remains silent before suffering.
And here's another missing piece. Without Constantine, there is no new Rome in the east. No Constantinople. Byzantium stays a trading port. Important, maybe, but not that important. Power stays where it always was. Rome, Milan, Nicomedia, and without that massive eastern fortress, the future suddenly feels softer, less anchored. So let's fast forward. A few centuries pass. New powers rise. Pressure comes from the east. And this time, there's no huge Christian stronghold holding the line for 1,000 years. Anatolia falls faster. The Balkans follow. Faith, language, culture, all change earlier, more abruptly. And Europe? Europe shrinks. Not just geographically, conceptually. It retreats westward, uncertain of what it even is.
Walls protect more than land. They protect memory. Without a city devoted to the faith, belief scatters instead of standing firm.
Religiously, things get messy. No Council of Nicaea, no unified doctrine, no shared belief tying kingdoms together. Christianity splinters. Arian here, Gnostic there, Donatist somewhere else. None strong enough to lead. So what fills the gap? Philosophy, Neoplatonism, the abstract one. Elegant ideas, clean logic, but no salvation. The army follows Mithras. Ritual, brotherhood, blood. Everyone believes something. No one believes the same thing.
Philosophy sharpens the mind, but it cannot heal the soul. And rites that glorify strength alone leave the weak unseen.
And Rome itself? The Bishop of Rome stays just a bishop. No papacy, no Vatican, no united Christendom. No crusades, sure, but also no shared spiritual identity at all. Europe becomes a patchwork. Beliefs shift with borders. Faith follows politics, not the other way around. Now comes the hardest question: knowledge. In our world, monasteries preserve texts. Imperfectly, sometimes brutally, but they do preserve them. In this alternate Europe, maybe the academies of Athens survive longer. Maybe Alexandria's libraries endure. Or maybe nobody takes responsibility. Because philosophy admires knowledge. Faith protects it. And admiration doesn't always save things when times get hard.
Wisdom survives only when someone believes it is worth saving. The faith taught men that truth is sacred, not convenient.
So what does the modern world look like? Picture a city called London. Do you see a cathedral dominating the skyline? No. Instead, temples to the sun, civic halls, fire altars. Architecture never turns Gothic. It stays Roman, classical, severe. Law is Roman too, efficient, logical, but colder. No sin, no redemption, only duty, honor, status. Charity isn't personal, it's administrative. Language shifts too. Latin never freezes in prayer, so it keeps evolving. Romance languages stay closer, more mutually understandable. And the calendar? We don't count from the birth of Christ. We count from the founding of Rome. The year is roughly 2778 ab urbe condita. December 25th still matters, just not for Christmas. It's the birthday of the unconquered sun.
Light without mercy warms nothing. A word may function without Christ, but it does not heal.
So is this Europe better? Worse? Honestly, neither. Just different. More classical. More fragmented. More stable in some ways, and far more brutal in others. Because belief never disappears. It just changes shape. And that brings us back, one last time, to the Milvian Bridge. Because this battle didn't force faith onto Europe, it allowed it. It chose one path among many, a narrow bridge, a single victory, a belief protected instead of silenced. And from that moment, the Europe we recognize begins to take form. And just like that, the dust settles at the Milvian Bridge. Faith has stepped into power. Rome has taken a new road, and Europe starts to change. Not loudly, not all at once, but permanently. You don't see it yet, but it's already happening. Because while emperors argue about belief and authority, something much bigger is unfolding far from Rome. Beyond the Danube, entire peoples are on the move, not as invading armies, not as loyal allies, but as something Rome has never really known how to deal with: families, wagons, warriors, desperation. So what do you do with that?
I am Valens, Emperor of the Eastern Roman Empire. They come to our borders with families, wagons, and weapons. They ask for land, for protection, for a place within the empire. Rome has always believed it could control any situation with discipline and law. But some choices do not reveal their cost immediately, and once they do, there is no undoing them.
So here's the real question. What happens when an empire built on order meets a movement it cannot command? What happens when fear, pride, and uncertainty collide under a burning summer sun? And what happens when Rome believes, once again, that it cannot lose? Do you want to know how one decision on a scorching plain changes Europe in ways people at the time could never imagine? Then listen to our next episode. The Battle of Adrianople, 378 CE.